Hello Internet. I'm on my way back from another run and thought I'd record a vlog as I walk through the woods for this last little leg here. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that's been on my mind a lot, but I've been struggling to find kind of the words to phrase it. So I'm hoping that they'll come to me now that I've turned on my camera. And that topic is sort of tied in with this idea of like cancel culture or call out culture. It's basically the idea that there is sort of one set of perspectives that is more legitimate than the rest. And I see this a lot that, like in these online spaces, people like correcting other people's behaviors to be more in line with sort of what we have as a consensus, as a community kind of decided is like the right way to act, or the right way to, maybe the right language that we've sort of agreed upon. And I think that there's a couple of problems or challenges with this line of thinking. And one of them is the idea that, like, how we talk and how we hold people with care is gonna look different for everyone. And it's not that someone is right or someone is wrong if they need to be held with care in a different way, or want different language to refer to them. And I see this even within like marginalized groups. So here's an example, right? Within the disability community, there is kind of a divide between the language of person first language or disability first language. So that would be like a person with a disability would be person first language versus a disabled person that would be using disability first language. And some people prefer person first language, some people prefer disability first language, and neither of them are wrong. Like, people can have their own personal preference on this. It's not like one of them is more accurate or more true than the other one. People are allowed to disagree on this. It's a very personal decision. Some people really find a sense of community in disability first language, and they find that, like, sort of leading with, disabled person is, like, it resonates with them because it's really emphasizing their marginalized identity as a disabled person. And some people prefer the term person with a disability because they really value that they are still a person and that they want that to be kind of at the front of the language that's used to refer to them. So that's just like one example of a way where there is no like right answer in terms of like how the language should be used. And I think this is kind of a limitation of internet communication, is that when you're interacting with huge swaths of people at once, it's difficult to hold everyone with care at the same time because people are going to have different needs, and sometimes those needs are going to be conflicting. This, to me, highlights the importance of like face-to-face communication and two-way communication. And I think it's sort of like shining a light on just one of the ways that the internet can kind of limit our discussions, and limit the way that we are thinking about issues by sort of defining one way as the right way. Another example of that might be like the term NB for non-binary people. So I have recently come out as a demi-boy myself, and honestly, like, I kind of love the term NB for myself. I identify as non-binary, and NB really resonates with me, and I get that some people really don't like it because they think it's like infantilizing or too cutesy. For me, I love cutesy. I love cutesy shit. That's my jam. I want everything that is associated with me to be cutesy. So that's kind of like, no one is wrong there. People aren't wrong for wanting the label N be applied to them or not wanting the label N be applied to them, right? The difficulty becomes when we try to say that one of these ways is the correct way that people should act. And I think that that's sort of the way that I think about cancel culture. I think there's this sort of defined body of knowledge that is the right way, that's sort of elevated above other things. And I'm working on kind of a longer form video essay about, like, more comprehensive essay about kind of my thoughts around like cancel culture and just sort of how, like, where it comes from and how it interacts and what it means for individuals living within that system. So look forward to that one. And I'm gonna switch arms because my right arm is getting tired there. But oh yeah, the one last thing that I wanted to touch on in this video is I see this idea of sort of elevating one body of knowledge or one way of seeing the world as sort of a reflection of the society that we exist within. It's sort of a hierarchical mindset, just with sort of redefined who is at the top of the hierarchy, whose views should be prioritized. And that's where you kind of especially come into conflict, is like, oh, well, prioritize marginalized people. Well, what happens when marginalized people aren't a monolith? Because they're not. And I'm going to turn around because I'm at the edge of the woods, and I'm enjoying the backdrop of woods on this video. But it kind of reminds me of something that I learned about in my education courses at MSU, which is Paulo Freire and his model of like the banking system of education. In that system, knowledge is sort of like, it's held by the teacher and given to the student, right? Like you're depositing knowledge into a bank, kind of. And in this model, it's sort of like one person has all the answers and the other person is like an empty receptacle that's just like receiving this information, receiving this knowledge. Which I think we can all see, like, I think most people can see why that's a problem when the person who is giving the knowledge in that setup is someone with a lot of privilege, and the person receiving the knowledge is someone without a lot of privilege. But I think that if you just try to switch the roles, then you're still kind of buying into the same premise that knowledge is a gift bestowed from someone who is knowledgeable to someone who is not knowledgeable. And that there is one right way of thinking and one important body of knowledge that should be prioritized above other knowledge. And it's just changing who that knowledge belongs to. And I think the way that I like to think about knowledge is that it's generated by interactions, right? Knowledge is created. It's not like one person has it and they pass it on to someone else. It's like two people interact and the result of that interaction is knowledge. Or one person, you know, maybe if one person does a study, right? But that would be a little bit different context-wise. But what I'm trying to get at is this idea that knowledge is not something that is passed from one person to another so much as it's something that's created when two people are interacting. And if we don't view knowledge in this way, I'm worried that we're gonna miss out on a lot of perspectives, because a lot of people, like, everyone has their own lived experiences and their own perspectives, and there's gonna be things that are not accounted for in sort of our current model of, like, the right way to act in, you know, social justice culture, because that's always changing, right? We can't know, like, we don't know everything there is to know about human diversity and diversity of experience. That's kind of silly to think that we could ever know that. And to me, I think, rather than trying to assume that we have that and tell people how to act, I think if we focus on sharing our thoughts, our feelings, our needs, and listening for other people's thoughts, feelings, and needs with an open mind and with curiosity, I think that we can construct knowledge in a much more robust and inclusive way. So that's all I have to say for this video. It's also starting to rain around me. I don't know if you can hear that in the video, but I'm gonna head out here before I get soaked. I will see you next time. Bye.